Welcome to another edition of the Deals for Dentists podcast. And today we have David Howlett of Cortex Dental Implants. And David is the country manager and VP of sales and marketing for the Cortex implant. Welcome aboard. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Dr. Block. Good to see you.
And you're zooming in from Long Island area?
Long Island, Strong Island. Although when we speak, I'm always nostalgic for Boston. I'm an old Boston guy. I spent many years up there after graduating from UMass. So it's been a while since I've been up there, since what's taken place this year with Corona and all that. But I hope to be up there soon again.
So you went to UMass. Did you live in the Boston area as well?
I did. I was there pretty much through the 90s and into the early 2000s. Moved back. I moved to Long Island early, I guess, around 2000. But spent my postgraduate years up there. And last time I was there, I think, was probably the Yankee Dental Congress last year, right before everything happened with COVID.
So when after UMass, did you get right into dental business, or what did you do? What were you doing in Boston at the time?
No, you know what's funny, Doc, is that I probably have one of the more unique stories, at least in the dental B2B space. I sort of tripped into this world about 11 or 12 years ago, after almost an equal measure in CPG and mass media, consumer entertainment. I was actually in the music business, and while I resided in Boston, I worked for a company out of Woburn. And so you'd think that those would be two completely different universes, but once I was surprisingly introduced to dental, I really fell in love with it, and I found so many parallels to my previous life that it's been a good run so far.
What did you say, CPG? What is that?
Consumer products, retail account management, vendor management for the likes of Target and Best Buy and Walmart, iTunes, Spotify, Amazon. That type of content went through its own turmoil many years ago when their business model flipped in the rise of peer-to-peer technology and the changing of the business unit being a physical product. We spent hours on that, but very interesting enough, I'm seeing a parallel shift here in the dental world, if you can believe it, with regards to the supply network and how practices are working with the manufacturers and vendors they choose to partner with.
So now, were you actually? I wanted to get back to Boston. I mean, I could probably talk to you about Boston for the next hour, but anyone outside of Massachusetts will lose them pretty quickly. Did I read that you were a nightclub promoter in the Boston area? You were like the king of Lansdowne Street.
Well, yeah, I was on Lansdowne probably 4 or 5 nights a week in the course of my business, working with record labels. I was the guy if you needed to get anywhere. That was you wanted my card handy. And it's actually funny. I got into that business sort of strangely too, Doc. You know, everyone's got sort of like a young hustle story, and I got into that business over a pizza delivery. Anyone outside of Boston might not know this, but the big radio station up there, Kiss 108, right? You're familiar with them.
Sure.
They had a very popular morning show. Maddie in the Morning is like the zany morning show. And it was well rated around the country. As a communications major at UMass, I was always paying attention to that type of stuff. And I was working over the summer during my time at UMass as a pizza delivery driver. Shout out to Bertucci's, by the way. And I just happened to see a name come up on the delivery route, and I knew that name was one of the producers at the station. And so I paid my buddy $10 to take the order. I showed up and pitched myself, and I had an internship the following year, and that ended up leading me into getting picked up by the company in Woburn and spending a great 12 or 13 years in the Boston area, which I miss so much. But in 2010, I was recruited again, very surprisingly, into the dental business by a head of sales and marketing for one of the national dealers, who was very interested in really taking a new lens to their marketing process, and brought me in specifically because I didn't have a dental pedigree, because I had a very different point of view in terms of consumer-based marketing. And we restructured everything from branding to Marcom to trade exhibition to trade advertising strategy. We ran probably the most popular and successful customer loyalty program in dentistry for many years. And then I had the opportunity to manage a team dedicated to group practice, large groups, corporate dentistry, or the institutional-based accounts, acute care, non-acute care contracts. That was right around the time where this big trend, right, a few years, not too long ago, 5 or 6 years ago, in the rise of DSOs. And it's interesting to see what's happening now in the post-corona or mid-corona, if you will, economy. Where the dynamic between private practices and DSO locations, very interesting to see what's going on, and clearly challenging for all of us. As I'm sure you know quite well. Private practices in particular are of interest to me because there's more risk and more reward. DSO business has its advantages, and I give a lot of credit to that, to everyone that's leading the way in that space. Organizations like Group Dentistry now. I mean, it's just amazing to see how far that world has come. But there are some what I'll call late to the gamers that need to start making some choices for themselves this year. And that, I think that's a statement we can make in the B2B world, is also in the small business world. Private practices have fewer options than they did years ago to make decisions based on what they wanted to do rather than now what they have to do. And I call it entrepreneurship as a survival tactic. And it's not exclusive to dentistry, right? So we've seen and we've heard on the news, like so many businesses, service providers, restaurants, all these different types of businesses have pivoted to adjust to what they know is just a hard loss, right? At the end of the year, we're all looking at the books. Everyone, no matter what business you're in, everyone's 30 to 40% down. I don't care if it's dental or something else. And the past few weeks, the past couple of months, I've had the opportunity to speak with many leaders in the dental space, and everyone has been taking a wait and see approach and trying to get back to business where they can. Clearly, it's more geography based on who can open and who can't. But I think it's way more than that now. It's about what you mean to your patients, and I think if Corona's done anything, Doc, I think it's gotten all of us to take stock of the companies that we wish to engage with, the brands and products we wish to engage with, and really assessing what value do they represent to us and what meaning do they represent to us. I know it's sort of esoteric, but when it comes to dental service, is it really? There's a certain level of service that needs to change in probably 1/3 of private practice. We talk about like the adoption curve. I think you and I maybe talked about that. Early adopters, mid adopters, right? And in terms of technology and innovation, and having spent the better part of a decade in the dental distribution space and the everyday supplies, right? The consumables that the practice needs to operate every day. We've seen how that portion of the business has splintered dramatically. And there was a good run of companies that were a little bit less than the next company, and we're able to build a whole business around that model. But clearly, customers in the real world and practices that engage with their suppliers and other vendors want something different that they can't do on their own. I think last time you and I spoke, we talked about like going into Best Buy, right? And nothing against Best Buy or a retail store. Let's make it agnostic, right? And are we really the type of consumers now that walk into a retail store and spend 20 minutes with the sales associate advising us on what TV to buy for our household? That doesn't happen anymore. We're much more savvy and well-informed consumer, and we're looking for something different. We're more clued in on other aspects, not just price, but service and support, et cetera. So I think the private practice world is going to have to go through another change, just like suppliers are going through changes now. How many suppliers do you know personally? Many, right? Dozens and dozens. Well, if everyone's down 30 or 40%, everyone in general, and most of us are small businesses, and we all have to reevaluate, what's my unique value to my client, to my customer? And those that haven't done so yet are in hurry up mode to try to figure it out. And similarly, a practice has to do the same with their patient base. You and I have spoken about social media and marketing and what entrepreneurship means to a private practice. And the past 5 years is probably what it's meant. Let me invest in my website, get a social media program. We'll do a lead generation every couple of months. I'm getting an extra 15 patients a month. That's great. That's good enough for me. And that's not quite the definition of entrepreneurship now, nor is, well, in 5 years, I know I have a DSO I can sell my practice to. They're buying everybody, so we'll just, sell off in 5 years. Well, that pendulum has swung as well. And the groups have a different perspective. They want to know that you can contribute value to their group. They're established now, right? So are you worthy to join that group? Well, if you haven't done a great job in investing in other aspects of your practice to make your curb value, I guess, more attractive, well, maybe that group doesn't want you in their group. And so, what do I do now, right? Well, hopefully I own the strip mall that I'm located in, because I'm probably going out of business, right? If I don't do anything right now, and you know what, 5 years ago, I had the opportunity. I heard all about digital dentistry. I heard all about CBCT. I heard all about implants and bringing services in-house. And, we tried a scanner or two here and with limited success, and we just went back to what we know. It just worked. It's not going to work anymore. And so but that also leads to a lot of opportunity too. So again, I've really been excited by the level of, well, I'll continue to use the word entrepreneurship, but it's really more about creativity on the private practice level. And it's not just getting patients to come back because of the fear of COVID. It's really about, how do I establish a new level of, a new baseline for my business, so I know I have another 10 years before I need to exit, or before I have to worry about it, so that I can provide a unique level of service to my patients, because they expect more. I grew up in, I'll be very honest. I grew up on the border of Queens, and my parents weren't rich. So, every time we had a cavity, they'd take us from block to block, from one chop shop to the next, and fill a cavity for $5. And, the wallpaper is falling off the wall, and the lights are yellow, and, they're sharing an office with a podiatrist in the front office. And so that experience is not going to cut the mustard anymore for any kind of savvy consumer in 2021. If I'm going to come out of my house, and especially if I'm going to put my family at risk and coming anywhere, I want to make sure that it's a state-of-the-art facility, and that I don't have to worry about going from place to place or coming back a million times, or it has to be a seamless, friction-free patient experience for them to want to continue to do business with you. And that's what it is, unfortunately, is doing business. It's not just being a great dentist. If being a great dentist was all that it took, that would be a different story. But and I give a lot of clinicians credit, because they have to quickly master, whether they realize it or not, immediately after they graduate, they have to master all these different skills that they really haven't been trained on, right? They have to be small business owners. They have to run payroll. They have to do insurance. They have to worry about OSHA. They have to learn new technology. They have to learn how to fix things. So there's so much more than just and they have to run a successful business, right? They have to be responsible business owners. And that's where, a lot of consultants can add an incredible amount of value. And dental supply companies can add an incredible amount of value. I've helped, at this point, it's not dozens, it's probably hundreds that me and my teams have helped save money on supplies and find ways to grow their business, increase their margins, lower their fixed costs. But again, if a private practice is not looking into the next 5 or 10 years in the evolution of their business, I would be concerned that there's something to be said for those that might be left behind. So, quite honestly, last time we spoke, I was super excited to let you know that I was here at Cortex. Implants in general is a very dynamic category, and it's nice to have something really unique to talk about too. After so many years of just hey, I've got a deal on X, with the everyday product. It's nice to have something super unique and something that I know that benefits the practice and the patient too.
Yeah, I wanted to get into the magic specifically in a little bit, because I find that to be an extremely unique product. And I want to get back to a couple of things that you just said. First of all, I wish I knew you back in the day, because I was the poor sap standing online, when it's 2 degrees out and I couldn't get into the bar.
Yeah.
So I wish I had your card back then.
We used to laugh at you.
Yeah, I know.
But now you laugh at me.
Yeah,
But what's great?
I was too cold to laugh.
But you know what? I still get to work with rock stars. That's the thing. It's like dentists are bigger rock stars than anyone I've ever worked with in other worlds. They're a very unique breed, and I enjoy spending time with them. It's really fun.
Also, Maddie in the Morning was like an institutional morning drive show. And fun fact, he actually moved into a neighborhood of one of my friends down in Palm Beach Gardens. So,
That's great.
yeah.
World.
But what you said about, dental offices and entrepreneurial survival, it's so true. Our costs are up with all the PPE and, production's down. We're at limited capacity. And then there's just patients that are still scared to come in. And our wages for all our staff are the same. We brought everyone back. So you gotta,
that's great.
Yeah, you gotta, create that unique value. And like you said, you gotta, pivot, adapt, and, keep on looking to the next 1, 2, 5 years. And you got to change with the times. If you don't, you're going to get, left in the breeze. So you said some really insightful things there. And then I wanted to get into, your new company that you're with, which, well, not new, but new for you, is Cortex. And you can actually go to dealsfordentists.com and you can find their promo offer. Buy 15 Cortex implants and a surgical kit. You get 5 implants free. And this I have never heard of before. Plus, you get one of our clinical key opinion leaders to come to your office and train your team for over-the-shoulder live treatment on your patients. So tell us about that, because that is unique in itself. And then I want to get into the actual Magix implant and how that is extremely unique. So just tell us about the company and about that key opinion leader aspect to it.
Sure. Thanks. Cortex was established in 2008, and we've got a couple of key platforms, what I'll call legacy lines. One is called Classics and one is called Dynamics, and these are your typical workhorse implants, if you will. Again, we manufacture them, and there are certain unique benefits to surface coating and treatment, but essentially the body types are the types that you would be accustomed to if you were used to using another comparable brand, and they're available in both hex and conical. A couple of years ago in other regions, Cortex launched a very unique product and is now available in the United States. And one of the reasons we're speaking, Doc, is because last year, due to the overwhelming demand for our new line, Cortex has tripled our manufacturing capability. Our facility is based in Israel. It's also connected to a world-class training facility where, at least pre-COVID, we had people flying in from all around the world to be trained by our digital teams there. And I'll look forward to my opportunity to get over there once I've got my vaccine. I guess that's my free pass in. So what's interesting about Magix, Doc, and you know what? Again, I mentioned on the B2B side, yes, dental products are extremely exciting, but rarely does the innovation come along on the product side that you can get very enthusiastic about and say, wow, this is something no one else has or something I've never seen. In implants, most of the innovation over the past few years has been on the surgery, so on the guided side, right? So, and Cortex is certainly a leader in that space. Our system is based on a completely virtual planning, digital planning, from prosthetic-based virtual planning all the way through full restorative. The whole experience is done in open file, work directly with the lab, and there are no physical models. We just do everything digitally, and the surgery comes in one box on the day of the surgery. So I see a lot of companies that have invested a lot of time and energy in innovations in that space, and it's a dramatic difference in 5 years how far the digital world has come as far as implants go. On the product side, innovation is coming at a slower rate, right? In the dental world in general, typically what happens is one or two or a few great innovators, geniuses, if you will, come up with an amazing product, and then the next 10 years, hundreds of companies spend their time trying to copy that product or reproduce that product. And with Magix, we've got something that legitimately stands out on its own, and it's It starts with the body type. You can see I've even got a large version of it. A typical implant is going to have a much wider body. This is a very narrow apex, very aggressive pointed design. You can see the way in which it was designed gives it a maximum stability across all thirds of the body type. So it's a very unique body type. We can talk about coating. It's SLA coated, so it's sandblasted acid etched, very high level of osseointegration. But what really makes this special, and this is patent pending, Doc, by the way, is that Magix is the only implant in the world that claims a drillless procedure. Drillless? What do you mean drillless? How do you do that? Well, we talked about it, and you have the surgical kit. Maybe maybe you've got it available there. You can show our kit. But usually we look to a sequence of, what would you say, anywhere from 6 to 10 drills in typical implant placement, Doc. So what happens with Magix is you're making your flap or your punch, and you're using your pilot drill, and that's it. You're using your slow speed or a manual to place the rest of the implant. So what you're really doing is you're saving all of the bone that you'd be carving out over 6, 7, 8 treatments and drills. So there's a very high level of bone retention. You're compressing the bone vertically and horizontally, and it's perfect for immediate load and full arch, which is a huge trend in dentistry right now. So this has been a really kind of like a game-changing product, and 2 reasons why, or maybe a couple of more reasons why. I think about all the reasons why a patient might not accept implant treatment, and that's probably like the #1 goal of any offices that I've talked to over the past couple of months that are placing implants. What's your #1 goal for 2021? Improve our treatment acceptance rates, because they know that there's a metric associated with that. If we can improve our treatment rates by X amount, then we'll hit our mark this year. Well, what's the #1 reason why treatments are typically declined by patients? They're scared, right? And there's something to be said for, I don't think that enough time has been spent on the aspect of dental anxiety. It prevents most patients from pursuing an implant treatment. So if you can present them with a solution that gets rid of all of those scary drills, that can place their implant same day or same day is extraction, or 1 or 2 visits with a very rapid healing time, very few risks of complications with a conical connection, and incredibly low fail rate to the point where I don't even have any data on it. Patients are much, that's a great story to tell, and is bigger than dentistry. On the clinical side, for all of those private practices that I spoke about earlier, Doc, that may have regretted not considering taking steps to enhance their practice offerings earlier, and are now in a situation where they have to accelerate that learning curve for themselves. There's been barriers of entry why someone may say, I just don't want to go there. It's too much money. I got to buy a cone beam. I got to buy a scanner. I got to learn how to do it. Well, the barrier of entry on cost has come down dramatically, and we can even show you over the course of all of that investment is paying for itself in a very short amount of time once you start working on using the products. And now we've got the ability to fast track your learning and give you a very high level of assurance that there are less steps for creating complications or problems. When combined with our guided surgery solution, there's a very low risk of anything going wrong because everything's been planned and guided in advance. So this seems to be a great solution for those practices on the precipice now, Doc, of going, how do I get into this and how do I get into it now? And it's an amazing compounded metric when we kind of plot this out on paper. And often I'll go through this with practices. I'll go through their revenue goal, and we'll break everything down even by the case. And it's exciting and really surprising to see what that curve looks like when they know that now they can present and still be competitive against a group practice across the street that's doing a full arch all day long. They can present a full arch solution that's reasonably priced to their patient. They can perform it in almost half the time, because after 90 days of adopting our systems, we've graduated 45 practices from our lecture trainings, by the way, since November. And within 90 days, they're seeing an increase of anywhere from like 30 to 40% in their treatment acceptance. And they can do the math on what a full arch, even per week, does. It literally changes the nature of your business goals and your business model. So um, it's been validated just on my own experience of working with practices that have gone through our training and got to become familiar with our products. That it's funny. I had a conversation with one doctor who sold his practice about 2 years ago, and he's been learning about Magix and our systems. And he said, if I knew this was available 2 years ago, I wouldn't have sold my practice. And that was one of the more meaningful statements. I'm hoping that maybe he'll allow me to use it at some point in the future, because it kind of says it all. Really, this was a doctor that was a GP for 20 plus years, and he said, I was always so scared to even get into that game. It's just a different world for me. And now he spent time in even just observing a couple of our training sessions, and said, wow, I really wish that I made different choices. So for those that haven't made those choices yet, not too late. We're one of many systems that are now making it much more easier to get into the digital game. There are plenty of great companies out there that are innovating, if you will. But what does innovation mean to your small practice or to your small business? It really, it depends on, I think, more of a customized experience. COVID was sort of a blessing and a curse on the trade circuit, right? Over the past few years, Doc, I've been at Javits Center, and I've been at the Boston Convention Center for the Yankee Convention, of course. The past few years, we're kind of looking around going, we know things need to change here. And all attendees would agree, well, things need to change here, right? Well, now things have changed. And so how do we get out from under our own shadow here and figure out what the next steps are on the private practice level? Because the trade circuit is figuring it out. They've all gone virtual. They're pivoting as well. But because that whole world doesn't exist right now, that's typically, I would see many doctors come to New York at the end of the year. They get all of their CE credits. They'd attend all of the lectures. They check the box, and they go to see the tree in Rockefeller Center. Where are those opportunities now to gather en masse, right? COVID's changed all of that. Now, we've been lucky enough where we have a couple of centers that have been getting back to business, socially distanced, with fewer people attending. But to have a very personal experience, and one in which will allow you to accelerate your learning, and one which, the part that we didn't talk about the offering to members, which is available anywhere in the US, by the way, wherever you're located. Dr. Selig, our old Boston boy, will gladly visit you and work with you to prepare cases for live surgery when he comes to your office. And so not only does he serve that purpose, but now he's your mentor ongoing. Now he's your guide. Call him anytime. He'll give you his cell phone number, and you can walk through any of your needs. He's well versed in the platforms that we offer. As a matter of fact, there's a reason why he's working with us. He's placed over 30,000 implants. He's never seen anything like this before. The validation has been overwhelming. So we're super excited to expand the Magix name and have more practices working with our products, discovering our products, and learning what they can do in terms of changing their outlook on the future of business.
Yeah, for me, guided surgery was a game changer. I placed my first 1,000 implants freehanded. I learned at BU. It was all freehand. We took CT scans, but it was still all freehand. It wasn't guided. But guided surgery takes so much stress out of the process. For me, for the patient, it's so much quicker, more efficient. I do all the pre-planning, which really doesn't take that much time. The costs have come down significantly for guided surgery. So I have some patients that joke, and they're like, I should get a discount because that only took you 40 minutes to place that implant. And I'll tell them, yeah, but I spent, more time pre-planning to make that surgery go so smoothly.
The answer is, you're paying for the last 30 years.
Yeah. Yep. And the availability of it, when I first got out of school, you had to buy this, $120,000 CBCT and this expensive surgical kit and expensive software. And then the guides were, super expensive. It just wasn't, realistic. But now the costs have come down, and it's so much more available. It definitely helps to know how to place an implant freehand, just in case the guided, surgery doesn't go according to plan. But 99% of the time it does, and takes so much stress out of it. And so I wanted to get into, can you just show the apex of that implant up to the camera?
There you go.
Yeah, so that is very unique. So, I actually had an oral surgeon that sent me a case the other day, and it was actually an old 3i brain mark.
Mhm.
And I was just thinking of how far implants have come, from the old 3i or brain mark external hex, and how much of a pain those were to restore, to internal hex and internal connections, and then platform switching, the conical connection. Before that was the trilobe. The sinus lift kits have gotten better. The surgical guided. So a lot of it has just gotten so much better. But you're right; it does sort of plateau. The conical connection was awesome, but then you see a lot of companies starting to clone that, and they all start to look the same. But with the Magics, that apex and those aggressive threads seems different and unique. Personally for me, there's nothing more frustrating than when I can't get an implant to fully seat. I've prepped the site, even in dense bone, I've gone to my dense bone drills, and I've profiled, and I still can't get it to seat. But with the Magics, it looks like it has such a good aggressive thread pitch and that pointed apex that you can get it to pretty much go anywhere you need it to go.
Yeah,
Tell
now
us
with
about.
the exception of hard bone, right? That's the only scenario where you might reconsider, because you probably want a different solution. But other than that, for all other cases where this soft bone is Magic Magic is your choice.
You said that's that implant design there's a patent on it, or patent pending?
Yes, there's a patent pending. I'm hoping that we'll have word of it finalized soon. But the patent is on the actual procedure, the drillless procedure.
Okay. Now, when you say drill less, do you mean like actual drilling less drills, or not drilling at all?
Yeah, both. In many cases, Doc, you're really just using your pilot drill,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. In some cases, you may need to use your next drill in the sequence, but that's usually where it stops. So if it's not entirely drill free, it is mostly drill less in 90% of those cases.
Yeah, I think the other thing, especially for young dentists or dentists that are learning how to place implants, I did a residency at BU, and that's where I learned implants. And I don't know if back then, if I would have been comfortable enough or confident enough to do implants. This is back in 2002 when I got out, and a lot of the surgical kits and systems were so complicated. There were so many drills, and they looked so overwhelming and intimidating. Personally now I've placed a lot of different companies, and I just I'm a lot more comfortable, just trying a new system and picking up a system. But I just wanted to show this is also very unique in that the kit is so small and looks very unintimidating, with parts and pieces. So I think that'd be a great, very unique for a dentist that's first getting into implants, whether they're just getting out of school or just, they've been out of school for a while and just want to get in the implant game. It's a very unintimidating surgical kit.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that I really like about it. Now you're looking at the Magic's conical surgical kit. All of our drills are color-coded for sequence, and they all have built-in stoppers. So particularly on the guided surgery, I mean, you're not going any farther than you're supposed to on a planned case. Our guided surgery kit, which is a little bit bigger, is universal. So a lot of platforms, you'll need a different surgical kit for hex, a different one for conical, a different one for your different lines. Our surgical kit is universal for all Cortex implant products.
Okay.
So that's something of a nice feature as well.
Now so they're all made in Israel. Is that where the factory is, and where all of the components are made?
All of our components are made in our facility in Israel, including titanium alloy implants and abutments, with the exception of our drills. Our drills are made for Cortex by Mayfair in Switzerland. You should know that name, of course. They're not a private label. They're made for Cortex. Those are the only components that are not made in our own facility.
And the drills are diamond-like drills. Can you explain what that is? Is that I read that it was to reduce corrosion, get more use out of the drills. Diamond light or diamond like, keeping them rust free, which
Yeah,
is a
edit
unique
note.
aspect.
I'm not sure. I don't know the answer off the top, so scratch that one.
Yeah, because I find the whole process of implants being fabricated so interesting. I've visited a few factories, and it's it's amazing how it just starts off with this big rod of titanium, and it's machined into these perfectly machined parts and pieces, and then they're like gamma irradiated, which sounds kind of cool. Like that's how the Hulk was created.
Don't get caught in the room. Yeah, I wanted to mention that all of our implants are gamma radiated. Our QC process, by the way, is every step is checked at every step of the bench. So all along the way, step 1 is checked in step 2, step 1 and 2 are checked in step 3, etc., all the way through final QC. So they are gamma radiated. They're good for 5 years on the shelf. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
yeah, it's impressive. I haven't seen that up close and personal process myself. I'm waiting to see that, but it's something, right?
Yeah, it is something. And then the clean rooms where they're testing and checking each lot to make sure that everything was up to standards. The whole process is fascinating. So the actual the Magic's body I just found very interesting. But what's also interesting is your process of training and helping the dentist. You're actually sending a key opinion leader or a dentist to their office to help them. I haven't heard of any other companies doing that. Can you explain that whole process?
Yeah, that's right. So, and we don't think that anyone else is doing it either, especially post-COVID, Doc. Training opportunities in groups clearly have been limited. And we think there's a better way, given the type of company we want to be and the type of relationship we want with our practices. We're happy to announce that Dr. Grant Selig, DDS, is working with us as a KOL, and not just as a figurehead. He's actually going to be working one-on-one with practices. Our package to members also features his training services. So when you purchase your setup from Cortex, regardless of whether it's hex or conical, magics, dynamics, classics, whichever your choice is, you'll get your 15 implants and your surgical kit. We're going to give you an extra 5 implants, and those are the ones that you'll work with Dr. Selig on when he comes to your office to help you place them on live patients. So we think that's something that's may start a trend, but we haven't seen anyone do it yet. We're very happy to be the first.
So how does that work? Do I get 5 patients lined up for a day or two, and then just chair side over the shoulder, one-on-one help?
Correct. So we'll put you directly in touch with Dr. Selig. He will plan your case, pre-plan your cases with you, determine what date they're all scheduled, and he'll come in for the weekend and work over the shoulder with you.
That's awesome. What about after? What kind of education or do you have like an academy or a training program where I can keep in touch with Dr. Selig, or are there like a library of videos or other dentists I can chat with?
Yeah, so we have a pretty rich wealth of content on our YouTube channel. So I encourage everyone to check out the Cortex Dental YouTube channel for very quickly digestible 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 minute very well produced pieces on our guided surgery kit, on our digital workflow, on Magix and other lines. We are working on producing some additional digital content, which we'll be happy to announce shortly, along with Dr. Selly. But in the meantime, Dr. Selly doesn't forget about you after he leaves your office. So you have his cell phone number. Now he will represent us as your clinical mentor. So he can work with you on every Cortex case ongoing, which is a huge benefit. Yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. I mean, when I first learned implants, there wasn't all this available. Definitely wasn't a mentor sent to my office. I did do a residency where I learned implants, but YouTube wasn't even really that big of a thing back then. So the availability and what's out there now for dentists that do want to learn implants, there's so much at your fingertips. So you can do it. You just gotta get the training, pull the trigger, and case selection is so important at first. And patient selection. Pick some easy patients to work on, a nice juicy number 19 or number 3 with a lot of bone, and then you can start to get some implants under your belt, and then do some more difficult cases as you get more comfortable. Now, how has the implant market changed? Because in the US, because I know overseas that most of the implants, in fact, are placed by GPs, but here in the States, it's more specialists. But I feel like that's tipping and evening out more as general dentists realize that they need to pivot and start adding implants to their practice. And with the fact that digital guided surgery makes it so much less stressful and more accurate. Is that changing here in the States? Are more GPs placing implants than ever before?
Yeah, I think you're spot on, and it speaks exactly to some of the challenges that they face currently, right? In finding ways to bring that business in-house and to broaden the palette of their services that they can offer. Right? When I was a little guy back in retail sales, I used to sell stereos for a company just like Best Buy, Leachmere up in Boston. Remember them?
Oh yeah.
And my manager said, "Don't let them leave the store. If you let them leave the store, that's it." Yeah. So I think there is a place to, and look, it's not for everyone, but if you're taking cues from what's happening in the world and you recognize that you've got to do things differently and quickly, there are a lot of great companies with a lot of great solutions in the implant space. Cortex, we just happen to think that we have the ideal one, and one in which that can get you into this work faster, with a much higher level of confidence and assurance, and also, again, that great message to your patients. When you're advising, let me ask you, Doc, when you're advising a patient on implant treatment, have you ever mentioned the brand of the implants? Does that ever come up in a conversation with the patient? Now, we're going to be using this brand of implant today, and this is why.
I think, in my almost 20 years, I had one early on, and they mentioned Novo Biocare, and I was like, sure, I'll place a Novo Biocare. This is, maybe like 17 years ago. Occasionally I'll get someone who had a Bicon place, because Bicon is very unique, and they, locally they went to the Bicon Center. But other than that, no one mentions whether, what implant I'm using. I think one patient asked me, is your system from the US? They wanted a US brand implant, okay. But no, 99.999% of patients don't ask me any questions about that, because they're my patients and they trust me. They don't ask me about the kind or the type of implant. Engineers will ask, like, they're interested in the process. Scientists and engineers, they're interested in the whole process, but they've never, asked me what brand it is.
Of course not. And again, what you spoke to is someone doing a little bit of research. Hey, I want to make sure that whatever company you use, I know they may have done a little Googling, but you're never discussing why one implant company or brand or style or body type is superior than the other, or recommended versus the other to the patient. Did you know, Doc, in Western Europe, Cortex actually runs consumer television commercials and promoting our branded clinics. So that message is clearly communicated to the patient for all of the reasons I described earlier, many of which I suffer from. No offense, dental anxiety, right? On just the fear of drills. There's maybe I can put it off. And I don't know. There's so many appointments I have to go to, different offices, and I have to clear my schedule for the next year to heal. And it's really changing the way patients and clinicians are looking at this entire experience. And don't be surprised if you don't see that type of exposure here soon.
So are in other parts of the world, are patients, because of these clinics, actually coming into dental office asking for Cortex implants, or specifically going to like a Cortex dental office because of the advertising and the marketing?
That's exactly right. So
interesting.
We've got Cortex branded facilities that are patient destinations. And I see that becoming more of a trend here, not just with Cortex, but just in general in terms of integrated care and the elevated level of service, that experience, the customer experience I was telling you about. I saw actually a picture of an office, and gosh, I'm so sorry that I don't know who you are. I forgot, on LinkedIn this morning, and it was just such a stunning, aesthetically beautiful office. It's, wow, someone really got this right. They have the massage chairs and the big screen TVs, and making it a pleasant experience that I want to shop at. And that's something that, I don't know if private practice or practice in general has just benefited from the fact that people need dental work. And, generally speaking, I want to give credit to so many personal brands that have got it right and do understand that from an experiential point of view, what that means. But guess what? Now there's real choice, right? So as a patient, I don't have to go to just the only dentist in my neighborhood. Now, the dentists that have become more entrepreneurial and have spent time on their brands are compelling your patients to look elsewhere for a heightened experience. So I think that plays right into what customers are going to be searching for the next couple of years. Patients are going to be searching for in their experience with their dentist moving forward. So we've got a whole team dedicated to the patient-driven side of our communication. And again, that's probably going to be something that distinguishes us here in the United States soon enough as well.
Awesome, David. Thanks so much for joining us. Again, David Howlett of Cortex Implants. You can go to dealsfordentist.com and find their promo offer. Buy 15 Cortex implants, that's 15, and a surgical kit. You get 5 implants free. Plus, you get the clinical Dr. Selig to come to your office and help you place implants. That's awesome. David, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Brock. If anyone else wants some immediate assistance or needs some additional information, we can always be reached toll-free, 866-GO-CORTEX, or info.us@cortex-dental.com. And Dr. Brock, it's been my pleasure. I always love talking to you. I hope we catch up again soon, and stay warm up there in Boston.
All right, sounds good. We'll be in touch.